Hello, this is Mrs. Pullen again for Algebra 2, Lesson 1.05. Here's another example of factoring a trinomial where the leading coefficient is not equal to 1. I'm going to use both techniques. I'm going to start off with trial and error. Notice that there is no GCF with all three terms and that the expression is in standard form, and that the leading coefficient is 10, so it's not 1, so we can't use sum product. We're going to start off with trial and error, as I mentioned before. So we set up two parentheses, and we think of factors of 10x squared. And it can either be 10x and x, or 5x and 2x. With the first term, you don't switch, so you don't look at the other option of x and 10, 2x and 5x. Notice that the sign is different for the last term, right? You see a minus, that means the signs in the parentheses are going to be different. Either it's going to be plus minus or minus plus. And we normally figure that out at the end. But again, how you know it's going to be different signs in the parenthesis is based on the sign right before the last term. What are possibilities for negative for 30? Well, you have 1 and 30, but you also have to take into account 30 and 1 with the last term. You have 2 and 15, but you also have to take into account 15 and 2. You have 3 and 10 and 3. You have 5 and 6 and 5. And I believe I got them all. So where do you start? I'm going to start with 5x and 2x, though you could start with 10x and x. The chances are it wouldn't be 10x and x, so there's always a possibility, just because that middle term is not a huge value. So I would always start, I guess, with 5x and 2x. And that's really experience. That's why people have to practice. So 5x and 2x. Now, is there any choices? And I know one's going to be positive and one's going to be negative, and I may have to change the position of those signs at the very end. Can I eliminate any choices? Yeah, we're going to be smart about this. So I know I can't have a common multiple in the parentheses. So don't write this down, but if I put the 1 and put the 30, I know 2 goes into 30, so it can't be that. So then I said, well, maybe it's 30 and 1. Well, it can't be that because 5 goes into 30, so another one goes away. I love crossing things out. Could it be 2 and 15? That's a possibility, right? Because 5 doesn't go into 2 and 2 doesn't go into 15. But could it be 15 and 2? No, because 5 goes into 15 and 2 goes into 2. So I cross another one out. We love crossing them out. Could it be 3 and 10? Well, it can't be because if I put the 10 here, 2 goes into 10. So I can cross that off. But it can't even be 10 and 3, right? Because 5 goes into 10. Look at all of them that I'm crossing off. We love that, right? So far we have 2 and 15. Could it be 5 and 6? No. Here goes another one because 5 goes into 5. So really, there's only two possibilities. Now, that 15 is a fairly large number, so it's not that it couldn't be, but I suspect not. So as a strong, educated guess, it most likely is going to be 6 and 5, unless it should have been 10 and x. So by the way I've chosen the first two terms, we know it has to be 10x squared. And by the way I chose the last two terms, it has to be negative 30. The product of my inner terms is 12x. The product of my outer terms is negative 25x. And when I add down, I get negative 13x. And you may look at me and say, but Mrs. Poland, it was supposed to be positive and you got a negative. What should you do? Well, if the number is correct and the only thing wrong is the sign, then what you do is you switch the order of the sign. So you're going to make this the negative and this the positive. So this becomes negative 12x, this becomes 25x, and this becomes positive 13x. And now you have your answer. So the trial and error technique is very logical, and a lot of people like it because I think you can grasp it. It's not just a routine. You really kind of reversing your multiplication. The other technique that I'm going to do, and I'm going to erase this just so you can see, is the split the middle technique. Now, the split the middle technique is a routine, and some people don't like it because there's lots of steps to the routine. You may like it better later on after we do grouping, but it really does not matter to me which method you use. You use what works with you. But we're going to go over the split the middle. And the split the middle is a modification of the sum product. So you make that x, but instead of just looking at just looking at things that add to the middle term and multiply it out to the last term, what you're doing is you're looking to see things that multiply out to the first times the last. So 10 times negative 30, which is negative 300. And it has to sum to the 13. That's like normal. And so you set up your chart. So you have 1 in 300. There are lots of possibilities. You could use that calculator trick I showed you. 2 in 150, 3 in 100, 4 and carry the 2, 4 and 25. I should know that. 5, wait, that's not true. 4 goes into that 7 times, carry the 2, so 75. 5 goes into that 60. 6 goes into that 50. Oh my gosh. 7 doesn't go into it. 8 doesn't go into it. 9 doesn't go into it, but 10 goes into it 30 times. Does 12 go into it? I should get my calculator. I don't think 12 goes into it. I think I have them all. No, I know I don't. That was silly of me. I know 15 goes into it 20 times. I know, I don't think, oh wait, I think I now have them all. I hope I do. The next thing you do is that we notice that the last term has a negative. That means the signs in the parentheses, right? I just want to kind of highlight that. You see that negative? That means the signs are going to be different to achieve the negative 300, right? So, and since we want a positive 13, the signs have to be different. So the larger number has to be positive and the smaller number has to be negative. And I don't think I got them all because I need to find something that sums to 13. So let me get my calculator because I think I missed something. Okay, so I'm sorry I don't have my calculator open right now, but I'm going to go into that graphing feature and I'm going to do negative 300 divided by x and then go into my table of values and let's see which ones I missed. Of course I missed one. And the key one, 12 and 25. And again, we want this to be negative 12 and 25. So it turns out that I did miss one. That's why it's helpful to have that little calculator trick. Negative 12 plus 25 is positive 13. So where do I go from here? So we're going to split the middle. We're going to rewrite that first term, rewrite that last term, and I'm going to take that negative 13 and I'm going to split it into negative 12x plus 25x. Just like I mentioned before, this is still going to add to the positive 13x. We're just going to spread it out and then use a grouping technique. So we're going to group the first two terms and the last two terms. What's in common to the first two terms is a 2x. 10x squared divided by 2x is 5x. Negative 12x divided by 2x is negative 6. What goes into both 25 and negative 30? A positive 5. 25x divided by 5 is 5x. Negative 30 divided by 5 is negative 6. Notice we now have a common binomial. Okay, so we're going to factor that out. Again, you really shouldn't be writing this down. I'm just doing it now so you can see. So the common binomial, it's kind of like a GCF, is 5x minus 6. And this, notice you can divide this out and be left with 2x plus 5. But you really shouldn't show this step because mathematically, this is just to make it easier for you to see what I'm doing. And so this is your final answer, and that matched what we did before. Again, I don't care which technique you use. Some people like this technique because you get the answer first shot, but it is a longer one to process. The other one is more straightforward, but it can be frustrating if you don't get the answer right away. Have a great evening.